There we go. Okay, I was muted. Whoops. Sorry about that, y'all. Thank you, Auntie. So let me rewind it. Let me run it back. Hello, first of all, to my aunties, Melissa and Millicent. How are you both? I hope you guys are having a wonderful day. And good evening to those of you guys that are on the East Coast. Good afternoon to those of you guys that are on the West Coast. Welcome to Black Church Chats. Yeah, this is my second time coming at you this week. As you guys know, we're pushing to 100 subscribers by the end of the fall. And so until we get to 1,000 subscribers, I'm going to be broadcasting at least twice a week. And so this is my second time going live. I went live Tuesday. I talked about pastors and deacons in the Black church. So if you missed that, go back and check that out. It's in the library there. You can see it. So today, y'all know I like to jump right into it. I don't like to keep y'all waiting long. Today we're going to talk about a very important topic, very substantive topic. Um, dare I say a very controversial topic. But it is important for us to discuss this now because we need to be prepared for what's coming up the pike. We need to be aware of what's coming up the pike. And we need to have these discussions now so that we are not caught off guard by all the changes that are on the horizon. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Donald Trump's second term signature legislation, what he calls Big Beautiful Bill Act, has passed. It's been signed into law. And whether we like it or not, it is coming. And it is big. I don't think that it's beautiful, but it's certainly big. And there's a lot that we have to brace for because there's a lot going on in this bill. And the reason why I didn't go live immediately after the bill was signed into law, why I kind of took some time, is because I wanted to study the bill. You guys know I am not a Democrat. I am not a Republican. I do not identify with either party. So I want to make sure that my analysis is objective. And I want to make sure that I am not just reacting emotionally because of something that I've heard or because of something that I've read. And I just kind of have this knee jerk negative reaction towards something. I want to take my own time to pore over it and study it. And that's what I have done. Now I am by no means an expert when it comes to this particular. JM, what's up, man? Good to see you, Doc. Salute to you. One of our founding members is here along with my auntie Melissa and Auntie Millicent. Love you, Doc. Thank you for coming on. So I am by no means an expert as it pertains to this legislation. However, I have taken time to look it over, to read it, to pore over it. And I do think that I'm knowledgeable enough to have an informed opinion. And I also think that I have looked this legislation over long enough to know how this will affect poor people, marginalized people, vulnerable people, and a lot of the people that we minister to within the Black church. And I certainly think that this needs to be a topic of conversation within the Black church. Listen, for far too long, we have been way too reactive when it comes to policy, legislation, things occur in the Capitol, things occur in DC. And we're usually so far behind the eight ball that by the time the ramifications are felt, we're rushing, trying to catch up. And we can't afford to do that with this legislation. We cannot afford to do that with this legislation. We have to be proactive rather than reactive. We cannot wait until these provisions are enacted. We have to start thinking through this now. And we have to start planning for the fallout and the impact. And notice I'm not just saying we have to start bracing for the impact. We have to start planning for the impact because the impact is coming. Bracing for the impact is just ensuring that we have a proper footing. Planning means ensuring that we can address the chaos that this causes, that this will cause in a very real and substantive way. And so let me start this way. Okay. Because I try to be as objective as possible. And because I try not to just develop an emotional opinion without trying to discover some of the virtues, even though I disagree. I am going to share with you some positive things that I think this bill accomplishes. Okay. There aren't very many, but I'm going to start here, particularly for the MAGA folks that are listening and the MAGA folks that will listen. And that, they just think that I'm after blood. I'm not after blood. I'm trying to be as objective as possible. So I'm going to start with some of the virtues of this bill. So let's start here. I think no tax on tips. I think no tax on overtime is noble. I think that's a good thing. I think that's noble. I think that's helpful to the numerous hospitality workers, uh, waiters, waitresses. I think that's noble. So let me start there. I happen to be pro-life. And so this bill cuts off funding to Planned Parenthood for a year. And whether you're pro-life or pro-choice, I think if you're pro-choice, you should at least allow people the choice to fund abortion or not. Right? If taxpayers are paying for abortions, then they have no choice in the matter. So as somebody that's pro-life, I think that's beneficial, that we are not funding Planned Parenthood for just a year, though. Just a year. Which is interesting. Just a year. And y'all, that's about it. That's all the positive that I can say. That's it. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and not funding Planned Parenthood for a year. That's about all I can say about this bill in terms of positive things. Now let's talk about the harm, the irreparable harm that this bill will do. And like I said, in studying this piece of legislation, I went to conservative outlets. I went to liberal outlets. I went to middle of the road outlets. And there was something consistent. Um, Nobody denies, conservative, liberal, middle of the road, nobody denies that this legislation is fundamentally changing the way that Medicaid, SNAP benefits, the way all that works, the way all that is processed. Nobody is denying the fact that vast amounts of people will lose their health care. Vulnerable people will lose vital benefits. Nobody's denying that that is going to happen. What the people on the right are saying is that most of the people that will lose their health care are able-bodied citizens with no dependents who just refuse to work. And so the conservative says that what this bill does is it encourages work. Now, instead of receiving Medicaid for free, you're going to have to get a job. We're gonna talk about all of this. We're gonna unpack all of this, and we're gonna talk about work requirements as it pertains to Medicaid, and we're also gonna see how that very policy worked out for states like Arkansas and Georgia, because it's something that's been done, and we have empirical data on how that worked out. But let's talk about a bipartisan agency called the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office. CBO, again, bipartisan. You want to know how you know that the CBO is bipartisan? Because if the Democrats are in power and the CBO criticizes a Democratic bill, then the Democrats will try to discredit the CBO, while the Republicans will tout the findings of the CBO. Okay. Vice versa, when Republicans are in power and the CBO criticizes a Republican bill, the Democrats will tout what the CBO says, and the Republicans will attempt to discredit them. That's how we know that the CBO is objective. The CBO is bipartisan. Right now, Republicans don't like the CBO. Right now, Republicans are against the Congressional Budget Office. But they are an objective bipartisan agency. And this is what they've concluded about this particular bill. Hear me. The bill slashes over $900 billion to $100 trillion for Medicaid over the next decade, making it the largest reduction in program history. We talked about the work requirements that it introduces, and we're gonna examine whether or not that's a good thing in just a minute, because the conservatives are like, yeah, we're moving toward rewarding work and bolstering the workforce and encouraging people to get up off their couches and stuff like that. We're gonna address that. We're gonna deal with that in just a second. Let's talk about SNAP. food stamps. This bill, the cuts in this bill reach roughly 186 to 295 billion across 10 years to food stamps. So let's think of underserved communities. Let's think of the children that will be impacted by this. Okay. Stricter work mandates cover adults 18 to 64. Parents of 14 plus need to comply. Administrative funding shifts heavily to states, counties. So SNAP, severe cuts. Medicaid, massive cuts. Listen to this. According to the CBO, extends 2017 tax cuts favoring the top 1 to 20% of earners, often increasing this year's income by tens to hundreds of thousands for wealthy individuals. However, most households in the bottom fifth lose net benefit. Poor people lose roughly $560 a year on average as a result of this bill. Again, this is the CBO, bipartisan agency, and analyzing this bill and its ultimate effects. And why should we be surprised, y'all? Why should we be surprised that this bill is really a big old handout to millionaires and billionaires? Why should we be surprised by that? Donald Trump's a billionaire. Elon Musk is a billionaire. Jeff Bezos is a billionaire. Donald Trump has more billionaires in his cabinet than currently than any president in history. So why? I don't understand for the life of me. People that thought Donald Trump would actually be a champion for the little guy, that he would actually advocate and fight for the middle class and the poor in this country. When has he ever? When has he ever? Did we ever know Donald Trump to be a particularly altruistic person? But that's all of a sudden going to change now that he's president. So it's no wonder that this legislation is a big handout to millionaires and billionaires. So again, massive Medicaid cuts. People will lose their health care. Vulnerable people, sick people. Massive cuts to SNAP. People in underserved community, they already live in food deserts. It's already hard enough. Now you're cutting benefits. People will literally be hungry in the richest country in the world. Not just that. This bill will increase the national deficit. So my children's children, your children's children will be paying for this bill in the years to come. And critics warn of irreparable harm to vulnerable populations, rural hospitals, and health systems. SNAP cuts mean millions fewer eligible, lower benefits, and tougher work and tracking requirements. All of this stuff will impact the people sitting in the pews, particularly here at my church. I pastor in South LA. I have a significant number of elderly members, we call them seasoned saints here. Many of them have pre-existing conditions. Many of them are on a fixed income. I have families in my church that rely on SNAP, Medicaid, Medicare. There will be an impact. Now, for those of you saying, you just hate the fact that this bill pushes people to work. And what this bill does is it stops incentivizing laziness. I hear the objections. And if you're running with Trump's talking points, you believe that this bill is going to grow the workforce and encourage people to get up, go out, seek work, become gainfully employed, so they then can have health care through their employer. The only problem with that, though, is that Arkansas tried this very same thing, work requirements for Medicaid. And you don't take my word for it. You can Google it yourself. They're in a crisis right now as a result of that decision. As a matter of fact, don't take my word for it. Check this out. Watch this, y'all. Watch this.
I had to go to a cancer doctor to try to see if I had leukemia. Well, it turned out that I had a tumor, and my doctor had to convince me to have the surgery. And she told me, she said, Trita, I'm so frightened for you, because if you don't have this surgery, she said, you're going to bleed to death. You're going to bleed to death. The surgery was expensive. You're looking at $20,000, $30,000. If I didn't have that Medicaid, I would not be sitting here today. I would be dead, seriously.
In 2018, Trita Robinson's life was on the line. Arkansas had just become the first state to mandate that low-income residents on Medicaid work a certain number of hours a month, or they would lose their health care. For millions of Americans on Medicaid like Trita, the consequences of fights like this are deeply personal. But their stories are often never told.
About 3 months in, once people started losing coverage, that was when things got really hard. They would go to a pharmacy and try to get medications. They would be told that they've lost their Medicaid, and they had no understanding why.
Not being able to meet the 80-hour minimum isn't the only thing that caused people to lose their Medicaid. Many people didn't even realize they had to report their work hours every single month.
One of my clients, Adrian, he was working. He had the best job he had ever had in his life and was doing everything he was supposed to, but he didn't realize that he needed to report every single month.
The state had terminated Adrian's Medicaid, all because he didn't report his hours the right way. Without Medicaid, Adrian couldn't access his medications, and without his medications, he couldn't work.
He was told by his employer he couldn't work. It wasn't safe for him to. And so he lost the best job he had ever had and never got a comparable job back, just because he didn't report every single month that he was working, despite the fact that he was.
Once again, our Republican colleagues are pushing to impose work requirements on Medicaid enrollees.
While thousands of people in Arkansas racked up medical debt and lost life-saving health care, did work requirements actually get more people on Medicaid to work?
People who are on Medicaid are already working. The majority of them work, or they can't work because they are children, because they are caregiving, because they are disabled, or because they have a chronic condition.
And a major survey of Arkansas residents found no evidence of employment increasing in the short term or long term. So what's the point of work requirements if they have such disastrous impacts and no effect on whether people work? The case in Arkansas should be a lesson for all of us about just how destructive pursuing those policies would be for the 85 million Americans on Medicaid.
So we already have a case study in Arkansas. So in Arkansas, you had otherwise qualified people kicked off of Medicaid due to technical error, due to oversights. See, the misconception is that the only people that will be impacted by these work requirements are people that don't work. That's giving the government way too much credit. There's going to be massive oversight. There are going to be mistakes. It's amazing. The same Republicans that fight for smaller government, they used to at least, not so much under Donald Trump. But these same Republicans that claim to believe in small government all of a sudden think that the government is efficient enough to manage these work requirements in a flawless, seamless way. So many people are going to fall through the cracks. And I'm not just saying, I'm not fear mongering. This happened. This is not speculation. Arkansas is dealing with this right now. People have fallen through the cracks, and otherwise qualified people have lost their health care because of an oversight on their part or because of governmental malfunction. And so when we see this number, potentially 11 to 18 million people will lose their health care by 2035. When we see that number, those numbers, we can't just assume that all those people are just lazy, unmotivated people that just refuse to get up off their couch. No. This is absolutely going to hurt children, vulnerable people, people with medical conditions, people that are already experiencing food scarcity. In a nutshell, y'all, just to make it easy, just to make it as easy as possible. Just to make it as easy as possible. Here's the impact. Here's the impact. I got this off of ChatGPT, y'all. Remember I told you that I looked in conservative media outlets and I looked into liberal media outlets and in between and everywhere in between to study this bill. And I thought, let me go to ChatGPT. Let me ask ChatGPT. Will this bill negatively impact poor and vulnerable people? This is what came back. Yes, the bill is widely expected to negatively impact poor and vulnerable people through Medicaid, loss of coverage, higher costs, less care, SNAP, reduced aid, tougher eligibility, tax structure, favors wealthy, worsens inequality. Healthcare access, reduced access, hospital stress. Even hospitals, nonprofit state agencies, and policy experts are raising red flags. Sounds like, hey, Michelle, good to see you. Pastor Crosby, what's up, Doc? Sounds like Chat GPT is in agreement with the CBO. And then, of course, you have the Republicans that initially they opposed this bill. The Republicans initially, they did not like this so-called big, beautiful bill. They didn't. But of course, they are ultimately going to kiss the ring and bow to Trump. But 2 Republicans did not vote for the bill. 2 Republicans did not vote for the bill. And here's why. Representative Thomas Massie. Now, these are both MAGA Republicans now. So I appreciate the courage of these 2 Republicans. Thomas Massie of Kentucky said he could not vote for it because of concerns it would balloon the federal deficit. Way back in the day, Republicans used to care about the federal deficit. Way back in the day, Republicans used to care about spending. So Thomas Massie said no, because this is going to exponentially increase the federal deficit. And then Representative Brian Fitzpatrick of Pennsylvania promised his constituents that he would not support a package that included steep cuts to Medicaid. Now, initially, a lot of Republicans had a problem with this particular bill. But of course, the Republican Party is now a cult of personality. They are no longer an actual party of objective, free-thinking individuals. They are a unimind party. They all kowtow and acquiesce to Donald Trump, and if they don't think his brain, then they will be drummed from the Republican Party. And y'all, again, it's as simple as that I showed you. You may not know all the figures, all the numbers, but just remember this graphic. Medicaid, loss of coverage, higher cost, less care. SNAP, reduced aid, tougher eligibility. Tax structure, favors wealthy, worsens inequality. Healthcare access, reduced access, hospital stress. All of these things will have a catastrophic impact upon people that we serve in Black churches. Cuts to Medicaid, cuts to SNAP will hurt the people that we minister to on a weekly basis. I see some commentary here. Let me highlight. JM says the big brutal bill presents an opportunity for the Black church to minister and share to the many people who will be hurt by this bill and coming to the church for help. That's 10,000% right. 10,000% right. My dear sister, one of the greatest moderators in the world, says that bill is wild. It was always a bill to ensure the rich get richer. Facts upon facts upon facts. It's going to explode the debt. Facts upon facts upon facts. That's why he is trying to force feed to lower interest rates. That's right, because it's going to cause the payment amount to be bigger. That's right. It has also started the dollar to be on a track to possibly being devalued. All the while he is pushing ETF. Yeah. So conflict of interest much? Yeah. Yeah. Now let me pivot. Let me pivot. How do we respond as the Black church? How do we respond? Well, number one, and I know that this kind of is going to be going to sound like a given, but it's important that I say that we have a very robust Christology, one that emphasizes the sovereignty of God, the kingship of Christ during these times. And I think we ought to regularly remind our people that even though there is a despot, even though there is a tyrant, as president, Christ is king. Okay. And we are citizens of a kingdom that is unshakable. We are citizens of a kingdom that will endure perpetually. And we serve a king who has all power. So that's number one. Listen. I don't understand how anyone could be theologically liberal and comfortable right now at this moment. I just don't. If I possess a low view of Christ and I possess a very subjective understanding of the nature of God, then how is that going to give me any comfort as I see the powers of the executive office increasing and expanding? If my Christ is just a moral man, just a good a teacher, just a phenomenal example, and he's not king, then oh man, I'm biting my fingernails because it looks like another king is arising. And if I'm looking to somebody that's just a good moral leader and a good teacher, then I've got some fear and trepidation over this king in DC that's arising right now. So I know that. Listen, I know I that's my shot at the German chocolate ideology. I couldn't be theologically liberal and comfortable right now because my Christ is far too weak and my perception of God is far too malleable. However, I digress. What do we do now? Let me look at some of these comments. JM says, the big bloodthirsty bill also caps federal student loans for graduate professionals. That's right. That's something that I didn't even bring up. Like medicine, law, etc., reducing access to graduate education. That's right. That's something that I forgot to bring up. Now, some things I wrote down that I think that we're gonna have to do. If you're a Black church and you don't have a food pantry or you don't have a feeding ministry, you want to look into that ASAP. Okay, you want to partner with local grocers, farmers, mutual aid networks. You want to partner with other nonprofit agencies to bring resources to your church, to bring a food pantry to your church. If you don't have in my second book, Risks We Must Take. I hope I don't fall. In my second book, Risks We Must Take, in the last chapter of my second book is entitled The Choice to Be Intentional and Charitable in Our Spending. And in this, the subtitle, Directed Dollars and Benevolent Budgets. The choice to be intentional and charitable in our spending. If you are a pastor of a church that does not have a benevolent fund, I'm talking about monies earmarked to go to members in need if they need help with their utilities or transportation or their rent, you need to do that. You need to set aside monies designated. You're probably doing that anyway, but you may not have a specific line item, a specific budgetary allocation for that. You need to do that. You need to do that. And you need to start putting money away now. Okay. Also, health and wellness ministries. One of the things that we are looking to purchase here are vans. We want to purchase at least 2 or 3 church vans. Not just so that we can pick people up for church on Sundays or on, special events. But if one of our seasoned saints needs to get to an appointment, we can help them with that. If one of our members needs to be transported to meet with a social worker, we can help with that. Okay. As benefits are being cut and benefits are being lost, then guess what people are going to have to do? Well, now I got to take my bus money, my transportation money, buy food with it. But now I don't know how I'm going to get back and forth to my appointments. I don't know how I'm going to get my children to school. We also can do things like host health screenings at our church. We can partner with free or low cost clinics. We can bring here in LA, I know for a fact that we can bring medical trucks to our churches. They'll take people's blood pressure. That's something that we should have on rotation. Start making people aware of these services. Also, pastors, are you educating yourselves to understand the new Medicaid and SNAP eligibility rules? And are you going to help your congregation to understand these new work requirements? All right, maybe host a workshop to educate your members on how to ensure that they do not lose their Medicaid because of these work requirements, because of these reporting requirements and things of that nature. So education and outreach. You can also connect with social workers, legal aid organizations, bring people to your church to talk to your people on a regular basis. Also employment ministries. How are you helping your people prepare to enter or re-enter the workforce? Resume preparation. Do you have a closet with gently used suits and dresses that people can wear to job interviews? Have you thought about hosting a job fair at your church, on your premises? Maybe doing something like that quarterly. And then as always, and then as always, we have to continue to beat the drum. We have to continue to speak prophetically. If you are a pastor of a black church in a red state, or you're represented by somebody that signed this bill, you do know that we can now, houses of worship, houses of worship can now, we can now endorse political candidates publicly from across the pulpit. We need to continue to speak prophetically. We need to hold lawmakers accountable. Listen. I lived in Georgia as Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff, as they were running for the Senate. Lived in Georgia. I can tell you that they were elected, and Biden won in Georgia largely because of the black church. I was on numerous calls. Stacey Abrams had a fierce mobilization and organization campaign. And black churches were mobilized. Black churches were on one accord. Black churches were involved, included. And yes, because I was there and I know firsthand, Ossoff and Warnock won because of the black church. Now, whether you like Warnock, whether you don't, whether you like Ossoff, whether you don't, what I'm emphasizing is the fact that when we decide to unify, lean into this, speak truth to power, refuse to allow these politicians to abuse us, mistreat us. When we set our minds on giving these jokers the boot, guess what? They get the boot. They get the boot. So there needs to be voter education, civic engagement. These guys, listen, MAGA Republicanism needs to go somewhere and die. Not a slow death, a quick death. MAGA Republicanism is the bane of the world's existence. MAGA Republicanism needs to be defeated. And guess what? White evangelicals ain't going to do it because white evangelicals are in the tank. White evangelicals are applauding this brutal, heartless, disgusting bill. So the black church, we need to stand up. We need to be the conscience, the conscience of the nation again. So, these are just some of the things that I think that we need to do in preparation. Because most of the provisions of this bill will be enacted after the midterm elections. That's strategic. And why is that strategic? Why is that strategic? Why are most of these things set to be enacted after the midterms rather than before? Well, because right now, everything that we're talking about is just speculative. And Republicans have plausible deniability. Oh, no. Oh, no. This bill is going to be great. This bill is going to be wonderful. This bill is going to be that guy, that Isaiah, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Those Dems, they don't know what they're talking about. People will not start really feeling the pain until after the midterms. And then what's what this is the vicious political cycle. This is the vicious political cycle. It is most likely the case that the Republicans will lose. Democrats will come to power. The pain will be felt. The actual pain will be felt. And Democrats will get blamed for it. I laugh to keep from crying, y'all. But as somebody that's not a Democrat or a Republican, but somebody that is definitely opposed to MAGA Republicanism, listen, I will vote for an alley cat before I vote for a MAGA Republican. MAGA Republicanism is a throwback to Dixiecrat, Strom Thurmond, Jefferson Davis style government. And this bill is reflective of that. This bill clarifies that. So let me look at some more of these comments. Yep. The big brutish bill codifies a lot of the Project 2025 agenda into law. Yep, my church used to take benevolence offering to help certain parishioners pay utility bill. We'll have to bring it back. Yep, absolutely. Yep, the black church can provide food pantries, clothing drives, health care clinics, job apprenticeship. That's right. Yep. It's demonically deceptive for my friend and brother, Robert Ash. Yes. All right, y'all. I hope that this conversation has been beneficial. It's now time to get to work. All I'm doing is thinking out loud. I might have missed some things. You may have some thoughts that I didn't touch on. I am not the sole voice here. I am one amongst the chorus, one within a chorus. And we got to fight. We got to fight. And we got to prepare. Whew. All right, y'all. I will be back next week. I've got some really exciting shows planned for next week. As you guys know, until we reach 1,000 subscribers, I'm going live twice a week. I was live on Tuesday, and I'm live today. If you have not subscribed to this channel, subscribe, please. Help us get to at least 1,000 subscribers. By the end of the fall is our goal. We are on our way to 700 subscribers. I think last I checked, we have something like 650 subscribers. So we're on our way to 700 subscribers. Help us get to 1,000 by the end of the fall by hitting that subscribe button. And then make sure that you are notified whenever we go live on this channel. Trump is just an avatar of the MAGA movement that will live on even after he goes. Yeah, and I'm praying that, something happens. Like, I don't know what it could be, because I think that you're right. I think that MAGA Republicanism is now sort of the entrenched form or style of republicanism that this country will see for the foreseeable future, unless something happens, like unless there's got, I don't know how the Reagan Republicans, and it's so funny because it's like, it's funny because we're like begging for the Reagan Republicans or the Bush Republicans, like where are those guys? Please, like we are looking back at those days with nostalgia, like if only Republicans could be like that, right? But no, I something, unless, I think you're right, JM, unless something catastrophic occurs for the MAGA movement, this is the Republican Party. And it is a cult of personality built around one man, and whoever ascends to power within this party will have to become that man. So 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 it's not like somebody is going to ascend to power within MAGA republicanism opposing Trump or even highlighting some of Trump's flaws and mistakes. No. The only way to ascend to power within this MAGA party is to worship Trump, laud and praise him for everything that he does, and be just like him. And it's scary. It's scary. This is idolatry at its finest. We are watching in real time what idolatry looks like. But the sad part about it is that this idolatry isn't just going to hurt those engaging in it. It's going to hurt my members. It's going to hurt vulnerable people, poor people, marginalized people. Sad. It's really sad. J.D. Vance just recently gave a speech on heritage and citizenship at a right-wing think tank, and it's chilling and very dangerous. Check it out. Yeah. I can imagine. I mean, the xenophobia within MAGA republicanism is sad. You wonder how Bible-believing Christians could be so supportive until you realize, where's the book? I don't have the book. I think it's at home. But I read a book, Michael Emerson, quick read. I think I showed this book to you guys, called The Religion of Whiteness. And the book clarifies a lot, right? Because when you start to spin your wheels and your head starts to hurt because you're wondering how professing Christians could support MAGA republicanism, this book clarifies so much, because it helps you to understand the real religion that these people practice is the religion of whiteness. It's cloaked in Christianity. The facade is evangelical Christianity, but the actual religion is the religion of whiteness. And so xenophobia is a part of the game. It's MAGA republicanism. It's fascism. In order for fascism to stand, you have to label groups of people as vermin and enemies of the state. You have to have an enemy that is the biggest existential threat to prosperity. Black people and immigrants. There you go. There you go. There you go. But on a positive note, as I end this live, on a positive note, Christ is King. Christ is king. And he saw Trump coming. And I honestly believe that Trump, in a lot of ways, is this country's judgment. I think this country has been arrogant and haughty since its inception. It's had a form of godliness, denying the power thereof. I think wicked leadership is a sign of God's judgment against a nation. And hear me. This judgment, it's coming to us over something bigger than the LGBTQ agenda. Because some of you guys, we're being judged because everybody's LGBTQ, and so God's judging us. No, it's bigger than the LGBTQ agenda. This country has been defective since the beginning. Yet they've been taking God's name in vain, pretending to be a Christian country, pretending to be a beacon of Judeo-Christian values, while all the while mistreating, pillaging, plundering, raping, killing indigenous people, black people, and others. But Christ is king. Christ rules, Christ reigns, and we now look to him, and he will lead us on. And we're going to be all right. We're going to be all right. We are resilient. We are strong. We are capable. We're going to be all right. All right, y'all. That's all I got. Subscribe to the channel. If you haven't yet, subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the channel. And check out what we have coming up next week and beyond. Appreciate y'all. Y'all have a wonderful day.